with 91% accuracy tell if a couple is going to divorce or not based on whether, if you have this dynamic in your relationship, this is like code red. Here is what you can start doing instead. Any guesses on what it is, baby?
I don't know. I'm not the therapist.
Well, that is why I'm here.
You're my sky, you're my blue. I've been sticking with you.
Welcome to the Good Love Podcast. My name is Paulina.
And I'm Josh. And here we believe that everybody was created for good love and it's worth healing and fighting for.
Which is why we begin conversations and provide resources so that you can experience healthy connection. So if you are single, dating, engaged, or in early marriage, this space is for you.
I love it. It's exactly right.
Awesome. Well, baby, last week we kind of...
That's great.
We're
keeping it.
We got
We're
it.
We're keeping it. So that you know, that took like 5, 6, 7 takes.
That was our 5th take.
But we made it.
Yes.
Because we're not normally memorizing lines. So this is a little bit more difficult to do when you have we're trying to hit who we are and all of that. So we actually hit it.
Let us know if we did a good job. Let us know. I'm excited. We got it.
No guarantees that it's going to be the same way every single time.
We make no promises, but
yeah.
Welcome. We're so glad that you're back. And we're so excited to get into today's conversation because, again, a theme that you're going to hear throughout the Good Love Co. is cycles. And so we kind of began that conversation last week. And today we're going to talk about a cycle that gets passed down often.
Yeah. What is it?
It's the way that we communicate.
Ooh.
Right?
Communication. You always hear that. The communication is like the most important thing. It's like the thing that you really have to work on. Communication. Like that's all they always say.
Regardless of like belief system, it's like, well, what's the most important thing in relationships? Communication.
Yeah, you always hear that. Like,
yeah.
Even from like older couples, when we were first like in a relationship and getting married, one of the first things that you would, if anybody would find out, oh, you're getting married, just make sure that you learn how to communicate. That's like the main thing.
So with that said, let's jump into the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse.
Oh boy, let's do it.
So I'm gonna nerd out for a little bit.
Okay, I'm happy that you're gonna nerd out over something. That's not always just me nerding out over things.
I mean, when it comes to like attachment theory, you know, I'm gonna be like, baby, have you heard?
I'm just happy that I'm not the only one nerding out on things because I feel like I'm always like you're like really cool and like you got your cool things and whatever.
The
and
ratio on nerding out is like 70-30.
About a lot of stuff.
About a lot of stuff. You're just interested in a lot of stuff.
Well, I just like to learn the little things about them and just have all. Yeah, it's probably. I can understand why maybe it'd be a little annoying to watch a movie with me because I'm just like bringing up, did you know that this is what happened during the filming of this?
Literally.
Did you know that this? And I love doing that. I'm learning to just keep my mouth shut and watch it.
But I kind of do love that.
I mean, I'm bringing good context. So if you press if you unmute my mic during a movie on that, I'm talking.
I could not have gotten through Star Wars, honestly, if you hadn't given me all the little fun facts. I appreciate it. Okay. Anyway, let's jump right in. So this was discovered by John Gottman. So John Gottman is somebody who has been revolutionary to the marriage therapy space through research that they've done over decades. And by they, I mean him and his wife, Julie Gottman.
Yeah.
Like, how cute is that they've worked together and like found all these different keys and just groundbreaking information to help couples.
They are legitimate experts when it comes to relationships, marriage.
That have done research over decades.
Yeah.
They call it the Love Lab, which is the cutest thing too.
The Love Lab.
Like they set up an apartment in Seattle that like looked like a regular place. And so they would have couples come in, they'd record everything. They'd even get things like their heart rate and things like that. And they did this over decades and made some conclusions based off these studies that they did.
That's amazing.
And so based on these studies, and again, they then track these couples like, hey, are you still married? What's your marriage satisfaction and things like that. He now says that he can, with 91% accuracy, tell if a couple is going to divorce or not based on whether a few other things. It's a little bit more nuanced, but one of the main factors is whether or not you have one of these or multiple of these communication patterns in your relationship.
That's impressive. 91%. Like, I mean, I just wish that we were more accurate, of 91% accuracy on a lot of things.
I mean,
that'd be amazing. I mean, that's insane.
If I knew, like, okay, drinking that thing is going to, like, 90% chance that I'm going to die, I'm going to pay attention to what is that thing so I don't do it.
Yeah.
I don't have it.
That's impressive. And that just like talks to how much of experts they are in this space and how much experience they have.
Yes.
So definitely important to know who they are in this kind of relationship space, and also the resources and everything that they've done, because it's incredible.
So baby, I think before we jump into these, it's a great moment to talk about the first time you learned about the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. It wasn't great. And so as we kind of get into this, I want to tell you what they are so that you can kind of start thinking, does anything come to mind as you hear this? And so they are defensiveness, criticism, stonewalling, and contempt. So yeah, Josh had just briefly heard about what they were. I'm basically like watching a YouTube video about it, just studying for one of my classes. And yeah, tell us.
So, I mean, I just heard kind of what they were called. I didn't necessarily know that there's more in-depth definition to each of these. And so it's just like, oh, what's contempt? Oh, what's defensiveness? Like those types of things. And so when I heard contempt that day specifically, you were annoyed with me on something that happened. Right. It happens. Not a big deal. But
I was probably like stuck studying, like whatever the case is. But I was a little annoyed with you that day. Nothing crazy.
Right. And I was just like, okay, like contempt. What is that? And I just thought in my mind, like, you were showing signs of that to me that day.
Of contempt.
Right. Which is like, you were just annoyed with me. It wasn't a big deal. But I thought that there was like, oh, shoot, like she has contempt for me. Oh, no, we have one of the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse in our relationship. Yep. It's done. We're over. Like, we're going to end in divorce. We just got married.
You're like, we have a 91% chance.
I remember coming to you being like, babe, I'm really concerned. And I'm like, I was sad because it's just like, I think that we're on the path where this is not good.
The horseman is here.
The horseman is here to take us away. And I was just like so worried. And I remember you, because like I just heard 91%. So like I was just like, okay, this is over. So something that really helped, I think that after you heard that, you kind of chuckled and you were just laughing a little bit. Because it's just like, no, that's not how necessarily it works. Yeah. And it was hilarious because then it was just like, you were explaining that it's not just that one thing happens one time.
Or first of all, the contempt as it's defined is not like, okay, I'm a little annoyed with you.
Yeah, contempt, I had a wrong definition of just even what contempt was.
But besides that, it's like, no, is that a pattern in your relationship? Exactly. Is this your mode of communicating with one another? That's what you want to look out for.
Yeah, and so it's not an isolated one-time event that happens every so often because we all get annoyed or sometimes we can be defensive. I mean, that happens. Yep. It's that this is a consistent thing that is right. This is like a normal cycle that you are bringing into the relationship, and it is just this is how things go with you. Yep. So that helped me to be like, oh, okay, thank God, we're good. We're back on it. We're not going to die.
There isn't a horseman in our home.
There is not a horseman in our home.
Thank you, Jesus.
We are good, and so for me, it really helped me to understand that just because one thing happens, you're not going to die. And I think like when we were talking and prepping for the show, a great way that kind of helped me to just understand it that much more was like, if you had, for example, just coming to our bodies and our health, if, for example, you had a couple cigarettes one time, does that mean you're going to get lung cancer and you're going to die because you were smoking? It's like, no, like that's a silly way to view it. Yeah. A lot of cause smoking is very well researched. It's very well known, but that research and being well known is like over time, this is a lifestyle thing. And you've been doing this quite a bit. And eventually
it is likely
to, the odds are not in your favor. And if you would keep on that path for another, however long, a couple decades of that, Yeah, you're probably gonna not be in the best percentile of how good your relationship is gonna be, or how good your health is gonna be.
Yeah, your lungs are probably going to be damaged. Like the pictures on the box.
We literally have the research that shows that. Exactly. So it's the same thing. A couple times of this, things that happen here and there, like all of these things are going to happen. We're probably going to show signs of this here and there.
Yeah.
But it's not going to destroy you, and you're not going to then die, and your relationship is going to die because of it.
Right.
It has to be like, imagine it, decades of doing this. This is normal lifestyle for you. Eventually,
years of this adding up,
likely,
yes,
it'll eventually get to that point. Do we all know people who are in the 9% who go the whole distance with it and that they didn't have it? Sure. Like there are people who like smoke their whole lives and they're totally fine. But that's usually the exception.
Yes.
It's not the rule.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so for the rest of us, we really want to be mindful about not having any of these horsemen. So let's go ahead and jump into it. And the first one we're going to learn about is criticism. And it really is kind of what it sounds like. So I'm going to go ahead and read a quick little definition for us. Criticism is attacking your partner's character rather than addressing a specific behavior. So rather than making a negative comment about something that you've done, I'm making it about your personality. Again, I'm coming for your character. What it can sound like oftentimes is, you know, you always blank. Or you never fill in the blank.
The general statements.
Yep. So I'm going to go ahead and make some statements on how this could be showing up in a relationship. Okay. You ready?
Yes. Tell me.
You always shut down when we argue. Dang. You're so immature.
That hurts.
You know, you don't care about me at all because you never check in on me.
Ouch. These are just like knives just driving straight into me right now.
I'm sorry, baby. We're just role
an
playing.
Example. Okay, yeah.
Let's see. What's another one? Why are you always late? Always. Yeah. You're always late.
Why don't you care about what I have to say? Ever. It's always like the always and forever statement.
It's often absolute statements. And again, they're being made about more like your personality and your character rather than the action.
So it's not like I went out and I mowed the lawn and I missed a giant strip, which never would happen because when I mow the lawn, it's perfect.
And then you suffer with allergies for like...
Sadly, yes. But if that would happen, it's not like you coming out and saying, hey, you missed the spot. Like that's not a good job on the lawn. So that's very specific to the issue, to what happened. It's like saying you missed that spot on the lawn. You suck as a human and you are horrible at this.
You're lazy.
And you're lazy and you have no attention to detail.
It's like, dang.
And it's like, whoa.
Yeah.
Like that's a really big criticism to make out of one thing that happened.
So often when it's something that we do, we're like, that's not me, right? It's like when people go to church and it's like, ooh, like this for my husband, but it's like, baby, it's about you. Just take it, right? Yeah. So I do want to provide a little more context for what somebody who may criticize, what it may have been like that for them growing up, like what they may have heard at home, because I also want to be clear, these communication patterns, again, they are patterns, they are cycles that we have often learned. And I mean, they come from somewhere. So some of the things that, go ahead.
It's literally what you saw a lot of the times. And you're just like repeating what you saw.
And what you experienced. So we
makes a lot of sense.
Part of this is so that you can also have empathy. Say that you find yourself and you're like, dang, that's me. Like, have a little bit of empathy for yourself or for your partner if you're like, that's them. So this is
actually just to go through with what you're saying, just because this is in your relationship and you brought this in and this is kind of like a style that you have, it doesn't mean you're hopeless and there's nothing you can do about it. All. It's like, oh shoot, like I brought this in, I'm ruining it, we're going to get divorced. It's like, guess what? There's hope. Relax. It's going to be okay. Catch it early. And let's not let it go for 20, 30, 40 years.
Which is why we started this series talking about cycles and that they can change. our brains can change. So if you haven't listened to that episode,
super important.
It's going to be linked somewhere.
I don't know if it's, I don't, I'll be honest, I don't have the experience yet to know how to link that in YouTube. So maybe it'll be there, maybe it's not. I doubt it though.
We recommend you go and watch that episode because that's where we kind of start talking about cycles. Exactly. But again, here are some of the things you may have heard growing up. You made me mad. Why can't you be more like blank?
Ooh.
That hurts.
That's a tough one.
For the Latinos listening, te digo esto porque te quiero. And then that just blasts your personality. And I got to say, my parents never did this to me, but have I seen it? And it is
what does that mean for us people who don't speak fluent, perfect Spanish?
I'm just telling this because I love you. I'm just telling you this because I love you.
And then just like dumping on you.
On who you are, right? So if these are the things that you kind of heard growing up, you were criticized, you probably replicate that in moments of, again, conflict,
communication,
when you're wanting to communicate, right? And so this is the first pattern that you kind of want to be aware of, the first horseman.
And that's good because it doesn't come from just nowhere. It comes from experiences that you had when you were younger.
Exactly.
And you're bringing that in. But if some of these actually resonate with you, that's good because then you can oh man, I heard that a lot. Oh, I experienced that a lot. Wait a second, am I doing this?
Yeah.
And that helps you to then realize to identify these things.
So now you've identified it and you're listening to this and you're like, I do this. Or if you have enough safety in your relationship and you're sitting with your boo watching this and it's like, yeah, like I've heard your mom do this. Like you probably do. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There is a solution. There are antidotes that help us. And so here is what you can start doing instead. Any guesses on what it is, baby?
I don't know. I'm not the therapist.
Well, that is why I'm here.
That's why you're here.
So what we can do instead when we find ourselves doing that is starting to use I statements instead. And I promise you guys, these sound so simple, but they work.
I think for good solutions, they should be simple. If not, it's going to be extremely difficult.
And this isn't from me. Consistent. This is from the Gottmans. Again, this is from decades of research that has been applied for hundreds of couples. And so why won't it work for you, right? Yeah. So again, what you can do if you find yourself in this pattern is use I statements instead of you attacks. So what does that look like? Instead of, why are you always late, right? There's the always, never statements. You can try, I feel anxious when you don't show up on time because it makes me fill in the blank.
Yeah.
Right.
You're saying it how you were experiencing the other person. And
I'm not making this again about your character. You're just, again, whatever the case is.
I mean, if you would come at me and you said, you da-da-da, I immediately will become defensive just because it's a you statement. And I think most people would react the same way. That's it's not a good strategy. If you're trying to get something to change or express your idea, if you come at it from a you and that's not going to work out for you. Just come at it from an I statement and it'll make all the difference in the world. Because
I'm immediately then going on the defense. Yeah. Oh, wait, I gotta fight, right?
Exactly. You're not going to get anywhere.
Exactly. Now, in the dynamic where there is somebody who is criticizing, what we usually can find, not always, but then we have the second one, which is defensiveness.
Yeah.
Which makes sense. I mean, it's what you're saying. So you've just criticized me, so I'm going to go on the defense. I'm ready to fight you. And so defensiveness is self-protection in the form of victimhood or counterattacks.
Dang.
We're getting into it. I didn't write none of this.
But this is important.
I didn't discover this. We're just relaying the information, y'all.
Important information that if you see these things, red flags, red flags, red flags.
We are for your relation. We are for you experiencing good love. So don't shoot the messenger. We just the messengers, all right?
Yeah, I mean, just look out for these 4 things.
So I'm going to keep reading this real quick.
Go for it.
Rather than taking the blame, you shift it to someone or somewhere else, and this often escalates the conflict. Additionally, you may also victimize yourself in order to ward off a perceived attack. Sometimes it's not even, so let's say there's not even a criticizer, but for people, and we all know someone in our life who just gets defensive, and it's like, whoa, like this wasn't even all that, and now it's a whole conflict.
Yeah.
Because you just went on the defense.
Right. We're not talking about like, we all get defensive about things, but it's just like every single time that you come to that person and you bring up something that maybe you didn't like or whatever, and they constantly just take the defensive stance, like obviously something's up.
And I am always going to give the little therapist corner parentheses of, if this is you, I believe you developed that protective mechanism because you needed it at a certain time. For whatever reason, you needed that. And yet right now you probably find yourself in a place where you don't need it anymore. Maybe you are in a safe relationship and it's beginning to sabotage your relationship. That's when, man, I recognize it and I can't get past it. And I've read books about it. That's when therapy is a great option. It's a great place to go, right? So anyway, that's just my little parentheses. But let's talk a little bit about where that kind of communication pattern comes from, what you may have heard. So some things that you may have heard, and just where it comes from, actually, it's often learned in childhood homes where you may have been frequently blamed for things, even those outside your control, or if your emotions and experiences were often dismissed or invalidated, so you had to learn to defend yourself rather than express yourself. Like, that's heartbreaking to hear.
It's a tough thing, but it's a very real thing.
And so, again, I read that because if this is you or if this is your partner, like, it allows us to kind of pause and say, yeah, I can see that. Like, I've met your dad. Like, I could see why you developed this.
It helps us to have empathy versus just trying to like attack and like
fix it.
Saying like, man, you're just damaged goods. And I like understanding that there is reasoning behind these types of things helps us to just understand and come to understanding, which is all about trying to connect with the person.
100%. So some of the things that you may have heard in your childhood, why are you crying? It's not that serious.
Oh.
So again, invalidating, right, that child's experience, what they were going through.
Yep.
I don't care what your reason is, you're still wrong.
Dang.
I know.
That'd be tough.
You think life's hard? You don't know what struggle is.
Jeez.
So it's like, wait, so what I'm feeling, it don't matter because you had it harder than me, or whatever the reason it is, right?
Right.
That would cause somebody to be on the defense.
Yeah.
For many reasons.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
So we're not going to get into all the root issues why that may be. But again, just wanting to help give language and help you to recognize, actually, that sounds familiar to me. I might be falling into this. This might be a blind spot for me.
Yep.
Right. So let's go ahead and do a little example. OK,
give us the example. I'll see if I can take it.
So this is an example of like that blame shifting, avoiding responsibility. So
yeah, so I'm here. I tell you something.
Yeah.
Boom.
So tell me like that I forgot to I never take out the trash. So
oh yeah, that's not a good one. But
let's just
say you do take out the trash. You forgot to take out the trash. I
was too busy today. You know, you could have done it too.
Oh, dang.
It's like, girl.
Yeah. What's the next one?
So that's shifted the blame.
Right.
Like,
yeah. You're not
actually, that was my responsibility to take out the trash. That's something that we had an agreement on. And I didn't for whatever reason. There could be good reasons. And yet, rather than saying, oh, I forgot, babe. Now I shifted that completely on you.
Right. Instead of taking responsibility, you're just shifting it and you don't want to take that. What's another one?
Let's go ahead and practice a victimizing one. Let me see how you do. So I'm going to tell you, babe, I feel like we just don't spend enough quality time together.
Well, I'm just the worst husband in the world then. And you just don't
Why are you saying it like that?
You don't care about me. And I just have done so much in this relationship. And I'm just expected to do this. I can never get anything right.
That was actually really good. That was really
That was
good.
pretty good. All right. I like it.
And that's exactly like, I was just telling you that I want to spend more time together. And now you've like made it about you're a terrible husband. Like, that's not even what I'm saying.
Right. You're just like becoming a martyr / victim / whatever, right?
Yeah.
Like it's just, that's a defensive mechanism that just popped up.
So again, if you're recognizing it, we have the antidote.
Yep.
By the Gottmans. And by the way, we are going to link in the bio just their website and an awesome link.
That one I do know how to do.
That kind of.
We got that one down.
Just breaks these down as well. If you want to read a little bit further or even read about the study where this all came from. That'll
be a great resource for anybody.
Do you want to try and guess what the solution is to this?
What is the antidote for being defensive?
Well, it's the same thing for both of these. Whether it's that you get defensive or that you victimize yourself or that you blame shift, the solution is just taking the responsibility.
Just taking ownership for what happened.
Exactly. So you didn't get it perfect, and that's all right.
That's also not an attack on your character.
It's not an attack on your character. And in actuality, by shifting the blame or by victimizing yourself, you and the one that you love, you're not going to reach the resolution that you actually want.
Right.
Right. It's not getting you where you want. And you're probably feeling stuck already with this pattern. So again, what you can do instead is, hey, babe, you're right. I forgot. Whatever the case is. An example that I wrote down.
Because it's like these two seem to go very hand in hand. The first horse and the second horse. Like criticism, defensiveness. So it's almost like they feed into each other. And they can kind of loop.
Yes.
Because if you're criticizing on their character, then you're going to get super defensive. But and if you're super defensive, then they're going to criticize that defensive. It's just kind of like a thing that feeds itself. It's crazy.
You see it all the time. Like that is a very common dynamic. The goal of healthy communication is not to never have conflict.
Ooh, that's a good one.
You are two different people, different stories, different upbringings. Like the expectation that like you're never going to have conflict is unrealistic. And actually conflict does not have to be bad. So back to defensiveness, you're not getting to an actual resolution by blame shifting or again by victimizing yourself. And so the solution to that, the antidote is taking responsibility.
I think that's really good to understand. Like we're not trying to get to a place where we never have conflict.
No.
That's unrealistic, and you are setting expectations that are you're gonna really feel bad at that you're not hitting that.
Listen, you didn't sleep well last night, so you have a shorter fuse. The kids kept you up. You're sick. Your hormones. There's a million different reasons why you will have conflict here and there.
Yep.
And when you keep the conflict about the conflict, then you can actually reach a resolution. That's the goal.
Exactly. And that's the whole goal with this whole communication. What are we trying to do?
Yeah.
The 4 horsemen are about communication. So we need to learn how to communicate well, stop these cycles that could be potentially there because there's going to be conflict in a relationship.
Yeah.
And if there is going to be conflict, you're going to have to communicate through it.
Yeah.
And so better to start figuring that out now and not get these 4 horsemen involved and do it in a healthy way.
So you've told me, or I've told you, I feel like we don't have enough quality time, and I'd love to have more quality time. Instead of, I'm just the worst husband then, right?
Right.
What you can say instead, what it can be instead is, I hear you, and I don't want you to feel that way. Let's figure out a way that we can be more intentional about that. Let's plan something, right?
Right. You're not making it about yourself. You're not making it about the
it's literally about the thing at hand.
Exactly.
We want to spend more time together. I can see that.
Or right? You know what? You're right. Like I have been a little bit absent-minded. I've been super busy with work.
Yeah.
And having a moment where you can actually talk about like, oh, I didn't really know that you were super busy with work and you've been stressed about that. So you haven't been super present. And that's why we're not spending time. And instead of like immediately defensive, walls come up. I don't want to, there's no connection there.
Speaking of walls coming up.
Dang, these segues are like, these transitions are incredible.
They're giving.
I'm lobbing you like little softball hits. You just boom, hit it.
So, wow, I caught it instead of like
alley-oop. Now dunk it. No, but dunk. You gotta dunk it.
I have a crop top.
Oh, okay.
I'm a Dominican. Let's do this. Also, it was Dominican Independence Day.
Home run. There you go.
Stonewalling. Stonewalling is a third horseman.
So far we have criticism, defensiveness. Now we got stonewalling.
Stonewalling, which is exactly what it sounds like.
Which is a stone wall.
Which is when you build a stone wall.
It is a wall of stone.
Okay, let's go ahead and define it for all of us. Stonewalling is shutting down, withdrawing, or emotionally checking out of a conversation. And I really do love the word stonewall because I do describe it to clients. Whenever I'm seeing a couple and this is one of the dynamics, I'm just like, actually envision a stone wall. Like, it's cold. When you're left out, and I mean, we went to Scotland, Ireland, and Northern Ireland last year, and they
make everything out of stone.
Everything out of stone, and it be cold.
Yeah.
You touch those stones when it's outside and it's evening, it's cold. Like, you come up against it, it's rough. It's like just being left out. It's not a good feeling.
It's really easy.
And so
imagine a stone wall. What is that like?
We do exactly that in relationships.
So stonewalling, if you give a definition, what is stonewalling?
I just gave it. It's shutting down, withdrawing, or emotionally checking out of a conversation. What it can look like is, and I know for some of you, you're going to say, man, that's me. Or I've experienced this. It may be showing up with one partner or both. Somebody brings up an issue and the other one just walks away, gets silent, starts scrolling on their phone. But those are different ways in which we put up that wall.
It's like you just become cold. You put up a stone wall emotionally.
You are out.
And it's like, yeah, I shut you out.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, fine. You want to be like that? Then I'm going to stonewall.
As I was preparing for this and thinking through, man, what may you have heard growing up? If you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. So you've learned, like, okay, so these negative things, I don't know how to process them. I don't know what to do with them. I just shut down, right? I'm done talking about this. Here's another one. Just keep your head down and work hard. Whatever you're feeling, whatever conflict, just keep your head down.
Right.
A last one. You're being dramatic. Just get over it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So these are, again, things that you may have heard. So it gives insight as to why you probably don't know what to do when there is conflict, when there is something negative. And so in order to protect yourself, walls up. I'm out of here.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, if you like, I understand the one, like, if you don't have anything good to say, don't say anything at all. Mm. So sometimes we can think like stonewalling might be a good thing. Mm. And you might actually think that you're doing the better thing by stonewalling because I don't want to hurt that person. Mm-hmm. And that, to me, in my mind, that means like you just didn't grow up learning how to actually have good conflict and communicate it.
And I want to be clear, like, I'm probably going to tell my kids an iteration of that, right? So we're not coming for parents or anything like that. However, that paired with these other kinds of things that you may have heard may have led to you stonewalling now, right? So not you, I'm saying just generally speaking. Right. So with that said, what do we do with this? If you are somebody who finds yourself stonewalling, you probably are just overflooded. It's too much happening, and that is okay, right? You don't have to figure it out in that moment. Maybe just personality-wise, the way that you naturally are, you need a little bit of space to process. There is nothing wrong with that. So the antidote to stonewalling is, hey, take a break. Take some time to do some soothing. That can look like prayer. That can look like reading a book. Just taking some space, maybe playing video games, whatever that is, it is okay to do. But we do want to encourage you to communicate that to your partner. It's very different for you to put up your wall and shut that person out when they're trying to be there in the moment with you versus saying, babe, it's just too much for me right now. And this is a wonderful, again, video for y'all to watch together and for you to recognize that's me. So, babe, I just need I need a moment right now. I'm feeling overflooded, whatever word that you want to use. And give your partner can we come back to this in 20 minutes?
Yeah, or a couple hours, whatever it is, at least as long as you're coming back.
Yes. And I mean, physiologically speaking, in order to go from fight to flight back to regulated, it takes about 30 minutes. So maybe that's something for you. Like, this is what I find myself doing. Again, it's the cycle that I've learned.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's just the way that I am wired, but I need that 30 minutes and then we can come back to this.
Yeah. And that's really tough sometimes for especially guys because like we want to fix things. And so we want solutions. We want to fix things usually right away.
Yeah.
And so it's like you're delaying the process of wanting time and space. And I want to get the solution right now.
That's good.
And that's important to understand that like sometimes we need to just have a little bit of space. And as long as, and I think like, speaking on my experience, I like it when you tell me like, hey, I just need a little bit of time. We'll come back to that. So that way I know it's like, it's not just up in the air and now it's like, are we ever going to talk about that again? Like what was that?
Right.
So that's important, at least for me.
And vice versa. Like, wait, are you like abandoning me in this moment? Like I'm trying to connect with you kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, wait, we're coming back to this.
But like stonewalling would be, there is no saying I'm coming back. You may never come back to it. You're just shutting somebody out, almost like punishing them. And it's like, you're getting a stonewall now.
Yep.
And
they may be in that room with you.
And yeah, exactly.
But they've completely shut you out. And I think that for the most part, you've probably experienced this with a friend, with somebody where you're like, you are here with me, but you are not here with me.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's like the whole thing. We, if this is a common thing, every time that we have a conflict and in communicating, there's a stonewalling and it's like, we want to avoid that.
Yeah.
Horsemen, red flags, stay away from it.
So again, it's okay to take a break and maybe you recognize, oh, wow, my husband does this or my wife does this. This is good information. And this is something that when you're not in the heat of the moment, you can touch on, hey, babe, I recognize that when it gets there, you need a little bit of time. I just need to know that you're going to come back to me.
And then we'll be good.
And we're good. And I'm good with giving you space, right? So that's the third one. And the fourth one is the worst one. If you have this dynamic in your relationship, this is like code red. We spoke about smoking and it takes decades and decades. This one is more of a code red that I want you to address ASAP. This is also a good one where you may want to consider couples therapy soon. And
this is nuclear. Like this isn't like a cigarette. This is like radioactive. If you get near this thing and it's like really starting to affect your relationship, like mega things have to be done right away.
It's the most dangerous one. And that is contempt.
Right.
So contempt is when criticism turns into superiority, mocking or disrespect, looking down on your partner, feeling like you're better than them in some way. And it can take the shape of name calling or making sarcastic jokes at your partner's expense, right? So it's like you've kind of lost respect for this person. You no longer like are holding their heart and who they are, like with the value that God has put in them. This is red flag, like really big red flag.
Yeah. Just thinking about that, having that in a relationship, that would be awful. Like especially as a guy.
Yeah.
Respect and honor and like our wives admiring us is, at least speaking on my behalf, that is like a huge thing. Yeah. And I feel good when my wife looks at me with like, wow, like I really respect and honor him. I admire him. Yeah. I would imagine other guys feel the same way. And this is like cutting that completely. This is the opposite of that.
And for wives, I mean, we all want to be just treasured and wanted and desired by our husband. And then for you to be making like jokes at my expense or just not caring for my heart and, you know, like that would be devastating.
I mean, it's a biblical thing. It's just, it's not treating you like the treasure that you are.
Yeah.
Right? Like the gift, the treasure that you are. Like if I would treat you that way, I'm treating you less than what your worth is. Yeah. And that's a big thing. And I could imagine that would hurt.
And the thing is, it kills emotional safety. And it just creates this breeding ground for resentment, which are just both relationship killers. There's no other way to put it.
Yeah, you got contempt, you got resentment, you got bitterness that starts getting in like.
Yeah. And this can come from generational pride. And I feel like I pick on the Latinos a little bit, but that's just my background. So that's kind of what I know.
Well, I mean, it happens in all cultures, but like just from our experience, this is what you got.
So in machismo, we see that a lot where it's like, I'm the man. And it's like that arrogance that's like almost celebrated.
You should worship me.
Right.
And you are my servant almost.
And there's not that respect and that valuing. Right. And it happens both ways, to 100%. Be clear. I mean, we see it in our culture now where it's like, and I'm better than my man and I don't need him. And like all of that can turn into contempt so quick because I make more money than him. And so.
Or, yeah, I'm sure that you're going to get into it. But like even the idea of, like you're not like this guy over here. Oh, you're not like if you're in a friend group or whatever.
That's a good one.
I mean, it could easily be just like, oh, you're not like that. You don't do that. Oh, like you're not ambitious like that person.
Yep.
And it's that like comparison. That is that comparative contempt, like just like
slippery slope into
you're
contempt,
just looking at your person and you're just like, well, you don't have it together like this person does over here, and then it just gets into just a really how bad you would feel if that's literally what you're being compared to and made to think that you are like that. No.
So it comes from it's a tough one. And where does it come from? It can come from unhealed hurts. I mean, maybe you weren't nurtured and cared for and given identity and you never healed that. And so you want to make sure that you do have a place at the table, even if it's at the cost of, again, ridiculing or putting yourself above the one that you love most. And again, I don't want to villainize anybody because we know it all comes from these hurts, from these unhealed things. And so again, it's recognizing it and saying, no, I'm not going to allow this to be the end of us. Like, this is worth healing and fighting for, right? That's what we're always going to come back to at the Good Love Co. But again, we want to help you recognize it. It can come from seeing this modeled in past relationships. So it may have been the dynamic that you saw growing up. And so again, if you recognize that in your relationship, this is one where it's not just like okay, let's kind of start practicing. Let's take action. Let's do something about this now.
Like kind of more like this is ASAP.
Yeah.
Like there's a major issue that'll turn into something pretty quick.
So,
and it's just interesting that you say that because it just kind of gives that idea or the feeling of pride and like a very arrogant pride attitude. And that you really do think that you're just so much better than people, and especially your wife, like that you chose to partner with, for life. And, the Bible is clear on that. Like God opposes the proud and he gives grace to the humble.
Yeah.
And so pride is like one of those really big issues biblically. So that when you look at that and you have that pride in a relationship and it's coming through in like a very much like a contempt type situation where you think that you're literally superior to your spouse and you're just like, I don't understand why I'm with this person. Like you, not only are you like sowing
that literally hurt my heart. Like just hearing you say that, it's just like, ouch.
Not towards you at all.
I know.
But it's just, if you have that in your relationship, you're kind of getting a double whammy. You're like having, first of all, in your relationship, you're sowing seeds of destruction. Like those are just seeds being planted that are going to come, maybe not now, maybe not in 1 year, but down the line, it's going to come up if it's not addressed. But then also you're getting the double whammy that literally you are being proud in your heart And God does not like that. He opposes the proud. So it's like you're getting hit on multiple levels on that.
Yeah. And the solution that the Gottmans give to this is, hey, practice gratitude and appreciation often. Remind yourself of your partner's positive qualities and be mindful of their positive actions. So, hey, I really appreciate how hard you work for our family. But I want to take it a step further. I think this is where, okay, my roots are not okay. There is something deeper that needs to be dealt with. And so I highly, again, encourage, if this is something that you are finding within your relationship, it is a pattern, it's coming up. I know that you don't want to be hurting the people that you love most. This is really a good pause. It's time for me to get resources. It's time for me to, again, maybe within your church community, getting therapy. This is one where you really want to be mindful and not continue that cycle.
Yeah, and I would hope in this situation that if you recognize this, that if you recognize it in yourself, that you take it upon yourself to actually seek out help in that. That would be like the ideal situation.
Yep.
Maybe you recognize this in your partner and they don't recognize it. In that situation, how do we handle that? I would think that like it's not the best idea to go to that person and be like, you got this, you need to go to therapy. Because guess what's going to happen?
Walls up.
Defensiveness, you're going to have a stone wall coming up. You're going to have defensiveness.
One of the horsemen.
You're going to have all these things.
Yeah.
I would, and this is just my opinion, and you can tell me what you think about it afterwards, but I would imagine if that were the case, like I would start praying for my partner.
I love that.
Right away. And I would just start saying like, man, I noticed this and I don't know if they notice it. And just start praying and asking Holy Spirit to speak to them in this area of their life. Don't go up to them and start saying you need to in X, Y, Z, because like, I don't think you're going to get very far.
I think a culture that you have set in our marriage and in our family is taking responsibility for our own actions. Before I learned about the horsemen, we were doing a lot of this already, which I'm thankful for. But I think we can only take responsibility for ourselves and recognize, like, rather than sitting here like, oh, that's 100% my husband, I want to encourage you to, which one do you fall into? And maybe you don't fall into any of these. Like, that is amazing.
And that's a good thing. And I don't think most people are going to be like a constant, one of these would be a constant thing in the relationship. But if you do, please like take your own responsibility and look at what is in your own eye before you go try to plug something out of somebody else's eye. And
to the point on, well, I do recognize this in my spouse, like for sure. I would say, again, if there is no abuse, there is no active addiction, there is no active affair, I would say be praying for your husband. Lord, be praying for your wife. Help them to see, give me the grace to, and honestly, we do that in our relationship all the time. I'll be telling on you the Holy Spirit, like, Lord.
Oh, yeah? Well, I counter that with my own prayers against that prayer, and that he speaks to you above that one.
But baby, how crazy is it? Like, there have been so many times where I've come up to you like, hey, baby, I'm really sorry about whatever. And you're like, you don't always tell me that you were praying about that, but I know.
And I don't say it in the moment either. Don't. I'll say it later. You'll
be like, you know, babe, I was actually praying about that. And it's like something that I would have not come. I wouldn't have come to.
Let me just tell you,
and vice versa.
This is a secret weapon in a relationship. I'm giving you some secret sauce here. The secret sauce is, if there's something in your wife that's bothering you and that's major and it's like this kind of thing, and you are like, man, I've talked about this, or I don't want to bring this up right now because I've already brought up lots of other things, whatever the case might be. Yeah. Go to God, start praying about it, and ask him for his help, and start asking Holy Spirit, can you talk to them and let them know? And trust that Holy Spirit loves that person more than you do. And that, guess what? He'll talk to them. He'll talk to that person. Yep. If, for example, though, you are actually in the wrong and that person doesn't have an issue, guess what's going to happen in that case? So it's win-win either way. Right. Holy Spirit's going to let you know, no, they're good.
Exactly.
And there's something in your heart that has to change.
That's so good, baby.
So the important thing is to have that humble heart and to just come to God humbly and say, I see this. This is concern.
This is bothering me.
Can you please talk to them?
Yeah.
And you'll see what God does.
Yo, can you please talk to him real quick?
Yeah. What would be hilarious is like you're both praying about the same thing and you guys are just trying to combat each other.
That's funny.
A spiritual war. Bam, bam, bam. You guys are
That's
just
not how it
secretly
works, you guys. Don't worry.
I know it's not. I'm just saying.
So I hope that these 4 horsemen are helpful and for you to, again, have in your back pocket, recognize, maybe it's not in play right now, but you can recognize, oh, this is 100% a cycle that I saw growing up.
So you just gave us a rundown on the 4 horsemen.
Let's say them together. They are number 1, criticism. Defensiveness.
They go a lot of hand in hand right there. Then we got stonewalling
and contempt. He said it 1 second later for each one.
I could have said it myself.
Okay, go on.
Criticism, defensiveness, stonewalling, contempt.
Boom. And so we hope, again, that having this information is eye-opening for you if it is a cycle that you are seeing in your relationship, that this brings you to pause and to say, this isn't going to be the end of us. Absolutely not. And maybe you don't have one of these in your relationship. Amazing. Recognize perhaps, what did I see growing up? Because that might be my inclination, right? As we've talked about cycles. So before we end this
Thank you for teaching us that. Because I think like this is one of those 4 things. Keep an eye out. And where we want to keep these relationships healthy and strong. These are like those 4 things that are cracks in the foundation. We need to make sure that they're getting fixed. And so I think that it's simple enough to understand.
It is.
There's simple answers to that. Again, we're going to link these things so that you can have access to it. But I think that this is really awesome to just get out there and for people to understand.
Shout out to the Gottmans.
Thank you, Gottmans. Hopefully one day we get to talk to you on a podcast. That would be really cool.
John and Julie. I would love to meet you. I can't meet Sue Johnston because she passed away, but I'm sorry.
This episode was brought to you by the Love Lab.
Alani.
The Love Lab.
Alani, listen, you got me through grad school and you get me through so many things.
Okay, so what we want to end with, and this is something that we thought would be a little fun, is just we're talking about communication, talking about conflict.
Yes.
We're talking about, how do we do that? So we're going to talk about what's worse communication style. What's worse communication edition.
I haven't seen these. So it's like a would you rather?
It's kind of like would you rather, but like what's worse? This or this?
Okay.
They're both pretty bad, but like what's worse?
Got you.
And I need you to answer and I need you to give me a reason why.
I want you guys, as you're going along these, like pause if you're watching it with your boothang and answer to one another. I also, baby,
please don't fight.
We didn't shout out our singles today. And I want you to know, if you are single, this applies to you. Recognize
that's actually a good point.
Which one of these do I see in my family system? And also, I want to be clear, a lot of my communication, I learned way before Josh and I ever met, tussling with Lourdes.
With one of your best friends.
One of my childhood best friends. And you know it's true if you're watching this. But
that's actually really good because
I want to say that, like, hey, if you are single, this applies to you.
Yes. Learn communication. Recognize when you are in conflict with friends, especially mom and dad, especially siblings.
Especially.
What do you normally do? Yep. And if you're doing those things, recognize it. And realize, like, if you're doing it there, you're probably going to bring that into a relationship. It's not, a relationship isn't going to magically take that away.
It is not.
You are likely going to bring that in. So,
right on in.
If that's the case, what are you going to do about it now to make sure that you do not have a 4 horsemen in your life? And
not
in your
one, not 2, not 3, or 4 of them.
Okay. So, what we're going to do is we're going to go into what's worse.
Okay.
So, it's kind of like would you rather, but these are both, pretty bad options.
Let's hear it.
And we're going to do it communication style because we're talking about communicating.
Okay.
So, Miss
applying
Paulina Lopez Miller.
Lip gloss.
Go for it. What is worse? Being left on red for 24 hours or getting a 1-word reply to something that was important to you?
I would be so mad.
Both suck. Like these are
both
horrible.
Are terrible. I'd rather at least get a response. Because if you don't answer for 24 hours, I'm thinking you're like you're dead.
Abducted by aliens.
You better be in the hospital is all I gotta say. That would be terrible.
That yeah.
24 hours?
Yeah, and we did long distance too. So like imagine if I didn't respond in 24 hours, you would think like, yeah, he's gone. Or
what's worse for you?
Okay, so I'll be honest. What's worse for me is a one-word response to something that was important for me because
really?
I think that you're going to be okay. Like I'm not necessarily thinking that like something bad happened because you're not the greatest texter.
I am a terrible texter.
So like for me, it's just like her phone probably died, which happens. And so I'm not necessarily concerned. It's more of, I wrote something out and you wrote a one word thing. And that's like,
yeah, that would be terrible too.
I hate that.
These are both bad.
Okay. Next, you can only respond to your partner with emojis for an entire day, or you have to communicate only in song lyrics for a full day.
What's worse?
What's worse out of those two?
Song lyrics, because emojis, do you know how many emojis there are? I could tell a whole story
just
with
an
emojis.
Emoji.
But song lyrics,
to
communicate
lyrics,
more specific things?
Yeah, the song lyric is tough because I don't really listen to the lyrics.
You're just sound guy.
I like the music, the melodies, the production of it. I don't necessarily listen to the lyrics first thing. So, I probably would struggle. I would be saying the wrong things all the time, thinking that it was a song lyric and it's not. But to be fair, you could just say whatever you want. And somewhere out there in the vast amount of lyrics, there is definitely somebody who said whatever you were going to say. So you could just talk normal and you're good.
Okay, let's try to communicate something. I mean, like, I love you. That would be easy to do with song.
There's so many songs that talk about I love you.
Hit it with one.
That L is for the way you look at me. O is the only one I see. V is very, very extraordinary. E is everything.
Everyone that you do. And love is all that I can give to you. That's a good one. But
I love you. Like that's at the end of it. So you can just use that. But that's my point is that you could literally say anything and somebody out there said it in a lyric.
That's pretty good.
So strategically, I would go song lyrics because I know somewhere out there, you just do like a search. It would pop up somewhere.
Don't forget to turn on the dishwasher. There ain't no way you're going to find that in a lyric.
I bet you somebody, I bet you there is like a Dominican merengue in Spanish, like says
no, because we don't use dishwashers.
The dishwasher.
We do have one licuadora.
The dishwasher. Exactly. There's something out there. I bet you I'll find it.
Pollo.
Between Spanish, English, between everything, it's going to be out there. So
you have to know it though to be able to use it. So I think that's way worse. In conclusion.
Wow. Okay. Next, you have to send an audio message for every response, no matter how small, or you can only respond to your partner using animal noises for an entire hour.
That's worse. That's way worse.
You would rather do...
I already do voice memos most of the time.
For the voice memo, if it's over a minute, please, we got to keep it under a minute.
Just call me.
Just call me at that point. Let's just talk. It's all good.
No, I think over a minute is fine. It's over 2 minutes for me, but I'm a girl, so maybe that's why. I don't know for you.
I mean, it's okay. Like, if you're sending me that, I appreciate the message. I'm just probably not going to get to it right away. It's just, you got to keep it a little bit. You got to keep it a little shorter. Just give me a call.
Just call me.
Let's just talk.
Yeah, but the sounds is way worse.
Yeah. All right. So that's would you rather or
what's worse?
What's worse? It was both. Hopefully you had some good conversations with your significant other on that one. And that you got to know something about them that maybe you didn't know. If you disagree with any of the ones that we came up with, let us know in the comments. Or if you agreed. Oh, no, I want to know specifically only if you disagreed. Sounds good. And if you had any interesting... Let us know in the comments why. Let us know what you thought in the comments. Let's see. Maybe we'll talk about it in the comments and get back to you on there. We've mentioned to you, if you are, again, single,
dating, engaged, or in early marriage, and there's like a question that you're curious about, something that you'd like for us to cover, DM those to us. Leave it in the comments below. We would really love to start incorporating that in our episodes.
Start answering some questions. Also, if you have any prayer requests, my beautiful wife put a nice little link there for you. You can go down there, click on it, send your prayer request. We will be praying for you on that. And yeah, so this is one of the best parts.
And lastly, don't forget to like share, subscribe, all the things. We really do appreciate it. And follow us on Instagram. There's going to be plenty more posts coming, so make sure that you're following us there.
Yeah.
So until with that, next time.
You're my sky, you're my